So I'm back, and over the course of the last several months, it has become evidently clear that the continued slew of media coverage on China has been anything but rosy. And with that in mind, I began to think that it might be worthwhile to jump on here from time to time and, take a headline that's come out, comment on it, provide not nuance, not context, but an explanation as to what may actually be taking place. As I like to share with everybody when I'm speaking with them, I don't like when the concept of nuance is raised with regard to China. I don't think China necessarily is nuanced. I just simply think that when you're looking at the China market, irrespective of industry, it's important to recognize that it is different. And when you have a market as different as China, it's important that you adapt where required. And that is what brings me to the topic today. So on Friday, there were a lot of emails that came in after it was announced that Matthews would be exiting and closing its Shanghai office. Now, to be quite frank, over the course of the last 12 months, we've made the point that our anticipation was that there would be exits from the marketplace. After the flurry of organizations rushing into the China market in 2017, 2018 to set up the investment WFOEs, it quite quickly became evident to us that there was a ready, fire, aim manner of thinking. What I mean by that is most looked at the market as an opportunity. They saw that they could have 100% owned platforms, but they didn't, I think, necessarily consider what it was going to be in terms of requirements to actually get into the market, build products, and ultimately build a scaled business. So this doesn't really come as much of a surprise. I think even in Matthew's individual case, the organization, for those of you who are, know the market well enough, they set up the WFOE, but they didn't ever register with AMAC for either a private fund or even a QDLP product. So what you essentially had, and I think what you have with so many others, probably a few dozen in fact, are organizations here on the ground in which the WFOE is out of money. All of these organizations, when they did set up in 2017 and 2018, came in with approximately $2 million or so of registered capital, which would have gone directly to support the business, operating capital, and the like. Well, fast forward through not only COVID, but the lockdowns, a market that has been not ideal for any onshore manager. And you can imagine that that money would have been burned through pretty quickly. There is no runway left. That then leaves these organizations with one of two options. A, they go back to headquarters a la Oliver Twist and simply ask for more capital to continue running their business. Of course, an option, but in this current environment, I think we can all agree that those requests would land on deaf ears. So that leaves option number two, which would be to exit outright. The reason I wanted to jump on, though, isn't to highlight the political realities, the dynamics of what it means for these organizations that did set up their investment WFOEs many years ago. It's to counter an argument, really, that you cannot compete in China. In fact, I think I saw somebody posted something on LinkedIn that said that Matthews and others were exiting because China is such a distribution-focused market, and these American or foreign organizations were unable to tap into that distribution network. That, quite frankly, is an absolute fallacy. I always have to express to clients, non-clients, and others, China that has pretty much one of the most open architectures in terms of distribution. Now, granted, on the private fund side, it's a bit different. I don't want to get too deep into the weeds on this, but arguing that you're not able to succeed because of distribution, for me, I think is a bit of an excuse. Now, having said that, it does get to a much bigger issue. And it's an issue I have been pounding the table on for quite some time. And that is, as much as there is a focus globally on KYC, right? Know your client. I find that when global institutions come to the China market, they don't follow the KYM or know your market. There has been very little in the way of assessing what is available, what or how you need to operate, listening to your local teams, so on and so forth. What we have had, and I would argue continue to have to this date, are global groups entering the market and not too far off from the mark, handing their local teams an operating manual that says this is how we do things globally, this is how you're going to do things in China, without any ability whatsoever to manage what flexibility might be needed to effectively compete in the local market. It's a myopic approach that, quite frankly, is going to lead to nothing but failure, if I'm being completely blunt. So what I really wanted to address here today was the fact that, number one, China is an extremely open market for competitors to enter and succeed. I remain of the complete mind that the local industry is extremely inefficient, is ripe to be exploited, and that foreign organizations that were able to come in and be able to recognize where those attack vectors, quite frankly, are, could do quite well. Not only could build a business that would be able to, let's say, basically generate profitability on operations within a handful of years, but could achieve real scale over a relatively short period of time. I'm talking 5, maybe 6 years. But again, it's not because China's too competitive or, the data security law or any of the other tropes that you hear in the media of why it is impossible to come to China. It's, for me, an internal issue. The inability to push and understand the market and then be able to adapt appropriately. And I cannot stress this enough, to be able to empower the local teams. I know that this is all naive. I can already hear what the commentary is going to be off of something like this. It's not that I'm naive, but it's very simply this. You can agree or you can disagree, or you can call me naive. But the fact of the matter remains that if a global institution that is looking at China is unwilling to be able to make the necessary changes, operationally speaking, to be able to compete effectively, then it's a fruitless endeavor. Simply don't come. And I've had that discussion. I have literally told organizations, you should just wait. Learn from the others, monitor the market. But unless you're able to actually change, you're just better off not being here. So with that, my goal is to try to jump on more often, to take headlines that I see. I don't know, I just saw something from Niall Ferguson talking about World War III. I'm not sure if I'm going to weigh in on that, but you kind of get my point. Anyway, in the meantime, I hope you're all well, and I look forward to communicating and catching up with you over the course of the year. Take care. Bye.